"So you're mine for one night," said the billionaire. But he discovered too late the reason behind his desperate request. Alexander Stone, a 40-year-old billionaire in a tailored Italian suit, stands behind his glass desk, his face flushed with controlled fury. His piercing blue eyes, normally cold and calculating, now burn with desire and frustration. "You're mine for one night," he declares, pointing directly at Sophia, a 28-year-old architect standing before him with trembling hands but unwavering determination. What would lead a successful woman to accept such a degrading proposal? The truth will break your heart. But here's what will shock you. Sophia doesn't seem surprised by the indecent offer. Her brown eyes, though glistening with unshed tears, show something Alexander didn't expect. Relief. Not the relief of a woman who's gotten what she wanted, but the desperate relief of someone who's just found the only solution to an impossible problem. Her hands tremble as she slowly agrees, and in that moment, both their lives change forever. What if the most shameful moment of someone's life was actually their greatest act of love? These words hang in the air like a prophecy, because neither Alexander nor Sophia realize that they are about to discover what true sacrifice is and how much it costs. Alexander James Stone isn't just another billionaire. He's the king of Manhattan's construction empire. At 40, he built stone architecture and development from scratch, transforming it into a multi-billion-dollar company that shapes the city's skyline. But success came at a price. Alexander learned early on that in business, emotions are weaknesses and people are either assets or obstacles. His 60th floor corner office overlooks Central Park, a daily reminder of how far he's risen from the poverty of his childhood in Queens. What makes Alexander dangerous isn't just his money, it's his intelligence. He can read people like financial reports, identifying their weaknesses, their desires, their breaking points. He's never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with the right amount of money applied in the right way. Women, especially, have always been simple equations for him. Find out what they want, give it to them, and get what he wants in return. Clean, transactional, with no mixed emotions involved. Sophia Grace Bennett is everything Alexander's previous achievements weren't. At 28, she's not just beautiful, she's brilliant. As principal architect at Stone Development, she's designed some of Manhattan's most innovative buildings. Widowed 3 years ago when her husband died in a construction accident, Sophia has built her life around two things: her career and her 6-year-old son, Lucas, who is her world. Sophia has everything to lose and only one person she'd risk it all for. Her next decision will prove that a mother's love knows no bounds. Unlike the socialites and models who usually orbit Alexander's world, Sophia has earned her place with talent and determination. She works harder than anyone else, stays late, and strives for perfection because she knows that, as a single mother, she can't afford to be merely good. She needs to be exceptional. Her peers respect her, her designs win awards, and her future looks bright. But cancer doesn't care about bright futures. 3 weeks ago, Sophia's world came crashing down in a sterile doctor's office when she heard the words no mother should hear. "Mrs. Bennett, Lucas has acute lymphoblastic leukemia." The pediatric oncologist explained that with aggressive treatment, Lucas had an 85% chance of full recovery. Without it, they would have perhaps 2 months left. The experimental treatment that could save her son's life costs exactly $150,000, money Sophia doesn't have. Imagine being told your child will die unless you raise more money than most people ever see in a lifetime. In 3 weeks, what would you do? Sophia tried everything. Bank loans, denied due to insufficient collateral. Medical loans, the interest rates were unaffordable. Crowdfunding, raised only $3,000. Her health insurance covered basic treatment, but not the experimental protocol Lucas needed. Each door closed, each no, brought her closer to the unthinkable, watching her son die because she couldn't save him. It was then that she decided to ask Alexander for a business loan, not as his employee seeking charity, but as a professional requesting a standard business advance against her future salary. She had everything figured out. She could pay back $100,000 over 5 years with interest. It was a reasonable business proposition. She just needed someone willing to take the risk for her. Sophia thought she was applying for a business loan. She had no idea she was about to discover what Alexander Stone really wanted from her. Sophia knocked on Alexander's office door that Friday afternoon with a manila folder containing her financial projections, loan proposal, and payment plan. She was dressed in her best suit, navy bluish, professional and authoritative. She had rehearsed her speech a dozen times. It was all business. She could handle Alexander Stone. "Mr. Stone," she began, her voice firm despite her racing heart, "I have a business proposal that could benefit both of us." She opened the folder on the glass table, explaining her need for $100,000, the payment structure, the interest rate she was willing to pay. Everything was impeccable, professional, and by the book. Sophia thought she was in control of the meeting. She was about to find out how wrong she was. Alexander listened to the entire presentation without saying a word. When she finished, he leaned back in his leather chair and studied her with those piercing blue eyes. "Sophia," he said slowly, "in all my years in business, no one has ever presented me with such a comprehensive proposal for such a large personal loan." "It's nothing personal," Sophia insisted. "It's a business investment in a valuable employee." Alexander stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. When he turned, there was something different in his eyes, something that made Sophia's stomach tighten with fear. "I'll make you a counteroffer," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "One night with me and you get your $100,000. Cash. Tonight." The room fell silent. Sophia couldn't believe what she had just heard. But Alexander wasn't finished. The folder slipped from Sophia's hands and the papers scattered across the floor. I don't understand," she stammered, though she understood perfectly. Alexander moved closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne and see the desire burning in his eyes. "I think you understand perfectly," Alexander said, his voice husky with desire. "I've wanted you since the day you started working here, Sophia. I've watched you, admired you, desired you, and now you need something from me, so let's make a deal that benefits us both." Sophia has seconds to make the most important decision of her life. What she chooses next will determine whether her son lives or dies. Sophia's mind raced. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She was a respected architect, not a desperate woman selling herself for money. But then she thought of Lucas, pale and weak in his hospital bed, wondering why he felt so tired all the time. She remembered the doctor's words, 2 months without treatment. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why did you do this to me?" Alexander's expression softened for a moment. "Because I can't get you out of my head, Sophia, and because you need something I can give you. It's all business. Your body for a night, my money for yours. Whatever emergency you're facing," with tears streaming down her face, Sophia looked into Alexander's eyes and whispered the words that would change everything. "One night, that's all. And then we'll never speak of it again." Alexander's Tribeca penthouse is a masterpiece of modern luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a minimalist design that exudes wealth and power. When Sophia walks in at precisely 8 p.m., wearing a simple black dress she bought that afternoon with money she couldn't afford to spend, she feels as if she's walking into a beautiful trap. The city lights twinkle below like stars, but all she can think about is Lucas asking her that morning if she'd be home to read him a bedtime story. Sophia is about to sacrifice everything she believes in for love. But Alexander is discovering that getting what you want isn't the same as wanting what you have. Alexander had planned that evening like a military operation. Champagne, the most expensive he owned, dinner, served at the best restaurant in town, music, soft jazz that he thought would set the right mood. But as Sophia stood in her living room, watching the city with tears silently streaming down her face, Alexander realized he'd made a terrible mistake. "Would you like some wine?" he asks, his voice softer than he intended. Sophia shakes her head without turning around. "I don't drink," she says softly. "I have responsibilities." The word hangs in the air between them like an accusation, and Alexander suddenly feels like the monster he's become. For 2 hours, they watch the most awkward dinner of Alexander's life. Sophia responds to his attempts at conversation with polite monosyllables. barely touching the food that costs more than most people spend on groceries in a month. She's physically present, but her soul is somewhere else entirely, a place where Alexander can't buy his way in. Alexander is getting everything he thought he wanted, but he's never felt so empty in his life. Money can buy a person's time, but it can't buy their heart. When the moment comes, when Alexander finally reaches her, Sophia doesn't resist, but she doesn't respond either. She simply closes her eyes and endures, like someone undergoing a medical procedure. And in that moment, Alexander understands the difference between desire and desperation, between seduction and survival. "Stop," Alexander says suddenly, pulling away from Sophia. "Just stop." He stands and walks to the window, his hands shaking. Behind him, he hears Sophia's soft sobs, and the sound cuts through him like a knife. Alexander is having his first moment of awareness in years, but will it be enough to save them both from this mistake? "I can't do this," Alexander says without turning around. "Not like this, not when you're—" He struggles to find the word. "Not when you're hurting." Sophia looks at him, confusion and hope warring in her eyes. "But the money," she whispers. "You said—" "The money is yours," Alexander says, turning to face her. "No strings attached, no strings attached. Just take it and go." He signs a check for $100,000 and places it on the coffee table between them. I don't know what you need this for, but it must be important enough to you." He can't finish the sentence. Sophia stares at the check as if it might disappear if she blinked. "Why?" she asks. "Why are you doing this?" Alexander looks at her, really looks, and sees not an object of desire but a human being in pain. "Because," he says softly, "I've done a lot of terrible things in my life, Santa, but I'm not going to add forcing myself into sex with a desperate woman to that list." At this moment, Alexander makes his first truly wise decision in years, but Sophia is about to do something that will change her life forever. Sophia takes the check with trembling hands, but instead of leaving, she sits back down. "Do you want to know why I need this money?" she asks, her voice firmer. Alexander nods, unable to speak. "My son," she says simply. "My 6-year-old son has leukemia, and this money will pay for his life-saving treatment." The words hit Alexander like a physical blow. In all his calculations about what Sophia might need the money for, drugs, gambling debts, shopping addiction, he never imagined this. He never imagined that the woman he had just proposed to would be a mother fighting for her son's life. Alexander thought he knew despair. He thought he understood sacrifice. Sophia is about to show him he knew nothing. "His name is Lucas," Sophia continues, pulling out her phone and showing Alexander a photo of a beautiful little boy with her eyes and a heartbreaking smile. "He's in the hospital right now, wondering why Mommy looks so sad all the time. I told him I'd be working late today. I've never lied to him before, but I couldn't." Her voice trails off completely. Alexander stares at the photo and for the first time in 20 years feels tears in his eyes. "Sophia," he whispers, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I never would have—" But even as he says it, he knows it's not entirely true. The old Alexander could have done it anyway, could have seen her desperation as an advantage rather than a tragedy. Alexander is about to discover that some mistakes can't be undone. But maybe, just maybe, they can be turned into something beautiful. The next morning, Alexander can't concentrate. Sophia's words echo in his mind. "My 6-year-old son has leukemia." He calls his private investigator and orders a thorough background check on Sophia Bennett, not because he doubts her story, but because he needs to understand the full extent of what she's going through. What Alexander discovers will force him to confront the kind of man he has become, and the kind of man he can still be. The report arrives that afternoon. Sophia's husband died in a construction accident 3 years ago, leaving her with enormous medical debt due to his injuries and a young child to raise alone. She worked 80-hour weeks to build her career, never taking a sick day, never asking for help. Lucas was diagnosed 3 weeks ago with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The experimental treatment he needs is not covered by insurance and costs $150,000. Sophia has exhausted all legal avenues to obtain funding. But what breaks Alexander's heart are the medical records that show Lucas's decline over the past 3 weeks, and the financial records that show Sophia selling everything she owns, her wedding ring, her car, her furniture, in an attempt to raise money for her son's treatment. She has worked herself to the bone as she watches her son slowly die. The final piece of the puzzle is a letter Sophia wrote to Lucas, but never sent, found in her desk drawer. My beautiful boy, if anything happens to Mommy, please know that everything I've done has been for you. You are the best thing I've ever created, and I would do anything, to keep you safe. Alexander is reading the desperate words of a mother willing to destroy herself to save her son. How do you recover after realizing you almost took advantage of someone's darkest moment? Alexander cancels all his meetings for the week. He drives to the children's hospital where Lucas is being treated, not to go inside, but simply to understand the world Sophia lives in. He watches the parents come and go, some crying, some hopeful, all bearing the weight of their children's illness. For the first time in his adult life, Alexander is forced to look beyond his own needs and desires. What he discovers will change him forever. Sitting in his car outside the hospital, Alexander remembers his own childhood. Not the poverty he usually focuses on, but the love. His mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, never complaining, always putting her needs first. When had he stopped seeing that kind of love in others? When had he become so cold that he looked at someone like Sophia and saw only an opportunity for his own gratification? That night, Alexander does something he hasn't done in 15 years. He calls his mother. She's retired, living in a small apartment in Brooklyn, and when she hears his voice, she cries. "Alexander," she says, "I was beginning to think I'd lost you to this cold world you live in." They talk for 3 hours. Alexander tells her about Sophia, about Lucas, about the terrible thing he almost did. His mother listens without judgment and then says softly, "Son, you've spent so long protecting yourself from pain that you've forgotten how to see when others are hurting. But it's not too late. It's never too late to choose love over fear." Alexander's mother has just given him the key to changing his life, but will he have the courage to use it? The next morning, Alexander shows up at Sophia's Queen's apartment at 7 a.m. It's a small, tidy place that clearly used to be filled with love and laughter before cancer struck. Sophia answers the door in a bathrobe, her hair disheveled, looking like she hasn't slept in days. "Mr. Stone," she says, immediately on guard, "what are you doing here?" "I'm here to apologize," Alexander says simply, "and to make things right." Sophia has been hurt and humiliated. Alexander is about to discover that some wounds can't be healed with money. "You already gave me the money," Sophia says coldly. "We have nothing more to discuss." "Yes, we know," Alexander insists. "Sophia, I know about Lucas. I know about your husband's accident, about your medical bills, about everything you sacrificed. And I know that what I did, what I asked of you, was unforgivable." Sophia's composure finally breaks. "Aren't you investigated me?" she asks, her voice rising. "You violated my privacy after already violating my dignity." "I needed to understand," Alexander says desperately. "I needed to know how wrong I had been. Sophia, I want to help. Really help. Not as payment for services rendered, but because it's the right thing to do." Sophia is about to make a decision that will determine whether Alexander will have a chance at redemption or whether she will be cut off from him forever. Against her better judgment, Sophia agrees to let Alexander meet Lucas, not as her boss, but as someone who wants to help. The children's cancer ward is a place of heartbreak and hope, where bald children play with toys hooked up to IVs, where parents sleep in uncomfortable chairs because they refuse to leave their children's side. Alexander is about to meet the little boy whose life is at stake. What happens next will determine the kind of man he truly is. Lucas is smaller than Alexander expected, pale and thin, but with Sophia's intelligent eyes and a smile that can light up the darkest room. "Mommy," he says when they enter, "is this the nice man who's helping me get better?" Alexander's throat closes completely. This child, this beautiful, innocent child, thinks of him as a hero, when Alexander knows he's anything but. "Hello, Lucas," he manages. "How are you feeling today?" "Tired," Lucas admits, "but the doctors say the new medicine will make me strong again. Are you really going to help me pay for it?" Alexander looks at Sophia, who nods slightly. "Yes," he says to Lucas. "I will ensure you receive the best possible treatment." Lucas asks Alexander the question that will haunt him. "Why are you being so nice to us? Most people don't help strangers." Alexander kneels beside Lucas's bed. "Oh, because," he says, his voice thick with emotion, "your mommy is a very special person who loves you more than anything in the world. And sometimes, when we meet people like that, we want to help them in any way we can." Lucas nods solemnly. "Mommy sometimes cries when she thinks I'm sleeping," he says, "but I know she's just scared. I told her not to worry, because I'll get better and take care of her when she grows up." Alexander has to excuse himself and go into the hallway, where he breaks down in tears, sobbing for the first time since his father died when he was 12. Sophia finds him there 10 minutes later and, without saying a word, gently places her hand on his shoulder. At this moment, Sophia stops seeing Alexander as the man who hurt her and begins to see him as a human being capable of redemption. In the following weeks, as Lucas begins treatment, Alexander and Sophia develop an unlikely partnership. Alexander pays all the medical bills, but more than that, he is genuinely dedicated to Lucas's recovery. He visits him regularly, brings books and games, and even learns to play chess so he can teach Lucas when chemotherapy leaves him too weak for more active activities. Slowly, carefully, Alexander and Sophia are building something neither of them expected: trust. "Why are you doing this?" Sophia asks one afternoon as they sit in the hospital cafeteria while Lucas takes a nap. Seriously, not the corporate responsibility answer. The truth. Alexander considers the question carefully. "Because I spent so many years building walls around my heart that I forgot what it was like to care about someone else's happiness," he finally says. "You and Lucas, you reminded me of who I was before success turned me cold." Sophia watches his face, searching for signs of deception or manipulation. Instead, she sees genuine remorse and something she would never expect from Alexander Stone: vulnerability. Sophia is beginning to see beyond Alexander's billionaire facade and the wounded man beneath. But can she forgive what he asked of her? "I can't forget what you wanted from me," Sophia says softly. "I can't pretend that night didn't happen." "I don't want you to forget," Alexander replies. "I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life making sure I never become that man again. Not with you, not with anyone else." 3 months into Lucas's treatment, with his health gradually improving and his prognosis becoming increasingly optimistic, Alexander makes a confession that surprises even himself. He's falling in love with Sophia, not with the idea of winning her over, but with her strength, her intelligence, and her unwavering devotion to her son. Alexander is discovering that true love isn't about possession, it's about admiration. But can Sophia see beyond their toxic beginnings? "I need you to know something," Alexander says as they walk through Central Park while Lucas plays on the playground, finally strong enough for normal childhood activities. "I'm not telling you this because I expect anything from you, but because you deserve honesty after everything I've put you through." Sophia stops walking, her heart racing. "What's wrong?" "I'm in love with you," Alexander says simply. "Not in the way I thought I wanted you before, but truly in love with you. For your courage, for your integrity, for the way you love your son, for the way you forgave me when I didn't deserve forgiveness." Alexander has just exposed his heart. Sophia's response will determine whether their story ends here, or if it's just the beginning. Sophia is silent for a long moment, watching Lucas laugh as he goes down the slide. "Alexander," she says finally, "what you asked me that night, it broke something in me, something I'm still trying to rebuild." Alexander nods, heartbroken. "I know, and I know I have no right to ask for your love after what I did. But," Sophia continues, "I also watched you with Lucas. I saw how you changed, how much you work to become a better man. And I saw that the man who spends his Saturdays at a children's hospital reading stories to sick children is not the same man who proposed to me. Is Sophia about to give Alexander a second chance he doesn't think he deserves? 6 months after that terrifying night in Alexander's penthouse, Lucas is in complete remission. The experimental treatment worked better than anyone dared hope, and he's back to being a normal, energetic 6-year-old boy who wants to be a doctor when he grows up, so he can help other kids like me. Lucas beat cancer, but now Alexander and Sophia need to figure out what's next for them. Alexander kept his word about expecting nothing from Sophia in return for her help with Lucas's treatment. He maintained appropriate professional boundaries at work, never pressured her for personal time, and never used the situation for romantic gain. But tension between them has been building for months. Everything finally comes to a head one night when Sophia shows up at Alexander's office after work. "I need to talk to you," she says, her voice trembling with emotion. "Is everything okay? Is Lucas—" "Lucas is fine," Sophia interrupts. "This is about us." After months of careful distancing, Sophia is ready to address the issue. What she says next will change everything. Sophia sits across from Alexander's desk, the same place where he made his indecent proposal 6 months earlier. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" she asks. Alexander cringes. "Every word. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. You said, 'One night with me and you'll win your $100,000. Sophia continues. "You know what I heard when you said that?" Alexander shakes his head, afraid to guess. "I heard of a man so lonely, so desperate for real connection, that he was willing to pay for it," Sophia says softly. "And yes, I was hurt, humiliated, and angry. But I also felt sad for you, Alexander, because I realized that, despite all your money and power, you were more desperate than I was." Sophia is about to reshape everything we thought we knew about that night. "I've been thinking about that night for 6 months now," Sophia continues, "and I understand something. You weren't just trying to buy me, Alexander. You were trying to buy the possibility of being loved by someone you respected." Alexander stares at her, speechless. "The tragedy wasn't that you made me that offer," Sophia says. "The tragedy was that you felt you had to, that at some point you stopped believing that someone could love you for who you are, rather than what you have." Sophia sees beyond Alexander's worst moment, the pain she caused him. This is what true forgiveness looks like. "Sophia," Alexander whispers, "I don't deserve your understanding. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Sophia agrees. "But Lucas deserves to grow up knowing that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever. And I deserve to choose love over fear." She stands up and walks around the table until she's right in front of Alexander. "Then I'll make you a different proposition," she says, her voice firm and confident. "Sophia, you don't need to—" "I'm not doing this because I have to," she interrupts. "I'm doing this because I want to." "Alexander Stone, would you like to have dinner with me? Not as payment for services rendered, not as a business transaction, but as two people who have been through hell together and somehow found their way to something beautiful." After everything they've been through, Sophia is offering Alexander what he really wanted all along, a chance at true love. Alexander looks into Sophia's eyes and sees not despair or obligation, but genuine affection and hope. "Are you sure?" he asks. "After everything I've done, everything I've put you through?" "I'm sure," Sophia says, "but I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we try to build something real together, it can't be about guilt, gratitude, or making up for the past. It has to be about who we are now, today, and who we want to be tomorrow." Alexander stands and takes her hands in his. "I love you, Sophia Bennett. Not because I feel I owe you anything, not because you're beautiful or brilliant or strong, though you are all of those things. I love you because you saw beyond my worst moment to the man I could still become. This is what true love looks like. Not perfect people finding each other, but broken people healing together. I love you too," Sophia whispers. And when Alexander kisses her, it's nothing like that horrible night 6 months ago. The kiss is tender, respectful, full of promise for a future neither of them could have foreseen. Their first official date is dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Sophia's neighborhood, followed by ice cream with Lucas, who has appointed himself Alexander's judge and jury. "Do you really love my mother?" the 7-year-old asks seriously. "More than I ever thought possible," Alexander answers honestly. Lucas thinks seriously and agrees. "Okay. But if you make her cry, I'll be very angry with you." "Fair enough," Alexander agrees. "But I promise, Lucas, that I will do everything in my power to make your mother happy for the rest of my life." And so, a family is born, not from biology, but from choice, love, and second chances. 2 years later, Alexander and Sophia's wedding takes place in the chapel of the Children's Hospital where Lucas received treatment. It's a small ceremony attended by the doctors and nurses who saved Lucas's life, Lucas himself as a page boy, and a few close friends who witnessed this unlikely love story unfold. From the darkest night of their lives to the brightest day, Alexander and Sophia prove that love can blossom anywhere. In his vows, Alexander talks about learning the difference between desiring someone and loving them, between receiving and giving, between transaction and transformation. "Sophia, he says, you didn't just save my heart, you taught me that I had one worth saving." Sophia's vows focus on forgiveness, second chances, and the courage to choose love even when you've been hurt. "Alexander showed me that people really can change, she says, and that sometimes the person who hurts us can also be the person who heals us." Lucas, now 8 years old and cancer-free, gives a speech about his new father that leaves everyone in tears. "Alexander didn't just help save my life," he says with the wisdom of someone who has faced death and overcome it. "He saved our entire family. The boy who nearly died is thriving. The woman who sacrificed everything found love. The man who lost his way found redemption. Alexander and Sophia founded the Lucas Foundation, dedicated to helping families facing childhood cancer overcome medical and financial challenges. The foundation's motto, 'Every child deserves a fighting chance, and every parent deserves support in that fight.' Their personal tragedy becomes a source of hope for thousands of other families. They create a revolutionary approach that offers not only financial assistance but also emotional support, connecting families with others who have walked the same path. Sophia leads the Family Services Division while completing her architectural projects, and Alexander discovers that using his entrepreneurial skills to save lives is infinitely more rewarding than simply making money. 5 years after their wedding, they adopt a little girl named Emma, whose parents died in a car accident while she was receiving treatment for brain cancer. Lucas, now 13 and still cancer-free, embraces his little sister with the same fierce protectiveness he learned from watching his mother fight for her life. The family that was formed from the tragedy becomes a source of joy and hope for everyone around them. And so we come to the end of a story that began with despair and ended with hope, that began with a transaction and became a transformation. So, here's my final question. What would you do if you were in Sophia's shoes? Would you have made the same choice to save your son? And if you were Alexander, would you have had the courage to change, to become worthy of someone's forgiveness? Alexander and Sophia's story reminds us that we are not defined by our worst moments, but by how we choose to grow from them. It shows us that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone's potential and helping them become the person they were meant to be. Sophia's courage not only saved her son's life, but also Alexander's soul. And Alexander's redemption not only healed his heart, but gave Lucas a father and Sophia a companion on life's greatest adventure. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in second chances and the power of love to transform even the darkest situations, subscribe to our channel and tell me in the comments which part affected you the most. Thank you for joining Alexander and Sophia on this incredible journey from darkness to light.